Why do we celebrate Easter? Why do you hide eggs and bunny rabbits? Well, think about what bunny rabbits are known for. Humping. Dude, you put 2 rabbits together, dude, next thing you know, there's 100. And then the Easter eggs is fertility. It was for the god of Ishtar. Isn't that crazy? Most people don't know that. Way back in the day, they celebrated by having orgies and making babies. So 9 months later, they could sacrifice those babies to Horus, the sun god, who was born December 25th, by the way. Now, when do they say Jesus was born? December 25th. He wasn't. And everybody knows that. You go ask any biblical scholar, they will say he was not born in December 25th. Then why are we celebrating Christmas?
Shalom, Kahala, Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, Ba'ashem Qadash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of the great millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, who the house of David reborn again in this generation. And shalom to the 1/3 of Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about why the world is celebrating Easter instead of Passover. As you know, today is Easter, and if you're in this truth, you should realize that we've just come out of Passover week, right? Or the week of unleavened bread, where we take all the yeast out of our house and don't eat anything with yeast in it to the best of our ability. Because again, remember, after all, we're in captivity, and there's things that you may not even know, and it has yeast in it. So again, right now we're just rehearsing the righteous acts, but that's what, the Bible commands of those who believe in the Lord, right? Those, that being the Israelites, totally. Now, like the video that man just says, right? Why are we celebrating, Christmas, right? Because again, the Lord wasn't born on December 25th. It tells you in the Bible that the shepherds were out in the fields at night, watching their sheep and letting them graze. But that was around springtime. That's when the Lord, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ, whose true Hebrew name is Yahawashi, which is Hebrew for He is salvation, was born. Okay, that's when, the church takes it back to 0 AD, Anno Domini. That's when the Lord was born, not December 25th. So his birthday would be around, like I said, the Passover. Okay, now, which would almost be like around April, March. Now, let's read this. This is Matthew's 15 and 9, excuse me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And that's what's going on right now with the majority of the world. See, this is why the world is celebrating Easter, a pagan holiday. Because again, that's ultimately where Easter goes back to. If you explain it to our people, then for some of them, it's going to snap and they're going to get it. Others will just go along with it because they just grew up with it and this is just what they're used to. One, because they don't believe, and this, to them, this is just a tradition, right? And like the Bible says, right? The doctrines of men. And these people, that follow these ways, they're just lost. And they don't understand what's really going on. They don't understand, that though they profess to follow God, that by not doing it, they're basically making it to no effect, right? By celebrating other gods and basically giving worship and breaking the first commandment, which is to have no other gods before the Lord. This is Jeremiah 10 and 2. Thus saith Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen is dismayed at them. So, like the Bible says, we shouldn't be following the heathen's ways, okay? And to us, Negro, Latino, Native Americans, us Israelites, Easter, along with all these other holidays we celebrate here in America, these are heathen customs. Okay, they're not our customs. Our customs are ancient customs of when we were in the know that we were the Hebrew Israelites. Our ways were to follow the Passover, right? Celebrate the remembrance of when the Lord passed over us in Egypt and brought plagues upon Egypt. Well, in this case here, I put this image up, because this is Constantine the Great. He was a Judite, and he was the emperor of Rome. Okay, he had taken over, and he had made comments how people, because remember, this man here, this man converted Rome from a pagan country into a one God country, a new religion. He brought Catholicism and set up the Vatican. Well, what they did is they merged pagan holidays along with biblical holidays, and this is why you got a mixture of the Passover and the pagan worship of the goddess of fertility, that being Ishtar. Well, that belief had to be merged with something biblical, and the closest thing would be Passover. Now, the Bible, when you get into Passover, like I just said, is to remember the events that took place in Egypt when the Lord had the angel pass over us. But later on in the biblical narrative, Yahawashi, the Messiah, he had the Last Supper during the Passover. Okay, and after that, that's when he was taken. Now, this here is ultimately what Christians and Catholics believe Easter is. They believe it's the events that took place. How on Good Friday, the Messiah, he had his Last Supper, right? He, crucified, and eventually 3 days later, which somehow they get a number, lands on Sunday, which is really only 2 days. He rose, and hence that would be Easter. But again, these religious people just don't have a proper understanding of the Bible, and this is why they're ultimately just being idolaters and following pagan religions. But again, when you get into who they're actually worshiping, it's this lady. It says she is Gaia, Astaroth, Ishtar, Artemis, Venus, Aphrodite, Semiramis, Nature, Great Mother, Phrygia, Libertas, Astarte, Durga, Hathor, Queen of Heaven. So you see, these are all from different civilizations and nations that worship this person. And why did multiple nations worship this woman? Well, because her and her husband had ruled over many people. Again, this is about 200 years after the Great Flood, and there were only about 600,000 people in the world at that time. So a lot of these people that were underneath the Babylonian Empire when they ruled, they went on and they had they separated into their own countries, as the Bible says, and they eventually continued to worship these ancient rulers, right? And they deified them. And that's why Ishtar or Semiramis has so many different names, because she's been worshipped by so many different nations over history, right? And this is just an example of that same image, right? Ishtar and her son Tammuz, which she says is Nimrod, right? Depicted throughout all these different races and nations. And as for current events, a big faux pas for Esau was what took place at the White House, right? It tells you here, it says, Biden slammed over proclamation that Easter Sunday is Transgender Day of Visibility, as Trump calls for president to issue an apology, right? And I'm not going to play it, but ultimately this devil, this Edomite devil, he came out and said that at the egg rolling contest that they were going to have, or drawing or art contest, they couldn't depict religious affiliations for Easter, right? And that on today, that it would be Trans Person Visibility Day. Now the thing is this right here is the character of Esau, right? This is the fruits of his wickedness. Now there's ultimately political reasons why they're doing this, right? Because they ultimately want the people to rise up. Okay, what's going to happen, you're going to notice this in the next couple months, is that Edom is going to get a lot more provocative when it comes to doing things blatant and to try to trigger the people to rise up against him, so that way he can come down. That's the way they work. Okay, and that's what's going on in the background politics. But ultimately, on top, simply the fact that this is being brought out as a possible option shows you what kind of devil these Edomites are, okay, to do this, right, to bring forward their new world order, right? This is the lengths that they'll go to try to stay in power, because they know that their time is up. The Apostle Tahar made a great video talking about how these Edomites know that the solar eclipse is a sign of their downfall, and this is why they're doing all these crazy things so fast, because again, they have an agenda to play out. This is Matthew 7-17. Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. And this is the fruits of Edom, right? This is how the Lord is making Esau bear, showing the world his wickedness, and he's casting abominable filth upon these devils to the point where people now are getting tired of them. Now, this is ultimately happening through the hands of Amalek, right? The top tribe of Edom, or the people you would call today the so-called Jewish people. But again, the reason why they're doing this is because they're trying to blame these lower Edomites, and that way they could survive. But the point being is that the Lord has sent us here to tell the world the truth, and the truth is that the so-called Caucasian and the Israelis, they're both Edomites. Okay, they're all so-called Caucasian people. They came out of the Caucasus Mountains after fleeing there and staying there for 1,000 years. As the Bible tells you, Satan would be cast down and ultimately binded up for 1,000 years, but he would be loosed again. And that little loosening of time was during the Renaissance, when they came out of the Caucasus Mountains in the 12 to 1400s, took over Europe and eventually the world, and we are where we are now, right? With the Roman Empire reborn again with these Edomites back in the driver's wheel. And again, they know where they came from. This is why they're pushing their pagan beliefs on all the holidays in America and around the world, and that now they're pushing forward this wickedness. This is 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. And that's how these devils work, right? They understand that they got things purposely wrong, that they got people practicing pagan rituals. And why are they okay with it? Well, because you see, though a lot of people are tricked into worshiping these pagan gods, these devils, these Edomites, these elites in power, they do it purposely. This is why you hear that they're Satanists, they worship Baal. That's where the worship is all going. And they're okay if they're as they see it, servants worship their gods as well. Okay, so this is why there's a problem when we start bringing out the true God, right? Yahawah and his son, Yahawashi, because we're bringing out the truth of the Bible, and this is why ultimately they're going to shut down freedom of speech on the net. Just watch, it's coming, right? All the laws are being moved into place, and we're going to see the famine of the word. But that being said, the Lord is putting out the message to warn our people that you got to be careful, because your adversary, the devil, right? Adversary meaning the person against you, which are these Edomites and these other nations, because all these others, 16 nations or 17 nations in the world, they're our adversaries. They're against us, okay? And the devil, right, which ultimately just means the deceiver, meaning especially these Edomites, they're ultimately setting up traps to get us to fall. So again, this is why we got to be careful and not worship and follow after the heathen's ways and end up committing idolatry and going against our power when we're supposed to be worshiping them in truth. So hopefully this is edifying. Until next time, I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahawah, B'Shem Qadash, Shalom.